Bam. Let's get back to our catching up our reading for the day. Our reading for the day. Educational and informational. Locating legal information. Understanding what the law is, how it's structured, and where to find it is just the beginning of learning how to conduct legal research. In this chapter, we're going to discuss all the resources that are available to you. In future chapters, we'll discuss how you'll use these resources to find answers to specific legal questions you might have. Locating legal information. In the years past, legal research occurred in one place, a law library. However, legal research looks very different today for a variety of reasons. One is that courts recognize that many litigants represent themselves and need access to user-friendly resources. Courts often provide on-site self-help centers to assist family law litigants to provide information about filing a small claim court action without a lawyer's help. Additionally, books, publishers, lawyers, and professional organizations recognize the value of providing information directly to consumers who will buy their products, hire them, and join their groups. But the biggest explanation for the shift in availability of general online research, we can find all kinds of legal information without the hassle of going to a law library. For instance, you can find your state's instructions for forming a corporation or read the Supreme Court's latest opinion on a particular topic. And many of these things can be found within minutes if you know where to look. However, using the internet isn't the only way to conduct legal research, or even the best way in some instances. So we cover several different research options available to you. Law libraries. Libraries remain an excellent resource for legal researchers. For one thing, they usually have a lot of legal books and resources that aren't available online, or at least not without paying a high fee. In the law library, you'll be able to gain access to an expensive online legal resources that we'll discuss further in detail below. Additionally, libraries come with another helpful resources. You'll have trouble replicating online librarians. When you're having trouble finding a source or confused about where to begin, a librarian can help. To find a law library near you, do an online search or check your local phone book. A library will likely have a local law library, local law school will likely have a law library, but states, counties, and other government agencies may have ones as well. So call or look online to make sure the facility is open to the public. Also plan on spending most of your time researching in the library itself. It won't let you check out the resources. Law school libraries have useful websites too. Many law school libraries have useful websites. Here are a few examples. Emory University School of Law. Under Law Library, you'll find links to legal materials, databases, free under electronic resources. Baldwin Law. This is Berkeley's. This website for Berkeley's Law School includes several different research guides to subjects in addition to the information about online resources and how to access them. Select Law Library from the top nav bar and then legal research and research guides. D'Angelo's Law Library, the University of Chicago's Law Library website. Start by visiting U.S. Legal Research for non-lawyers. Court offices and self-help centers. Another good resource for a lot of legal material in your local court. Many courts recognize that litigants representing themselves may need help with the legal process. Some courts have self-help offices or offices staffed by attorneys or clerks who help litigants figure out what forms to fill and what deadlines to meet and so forth. These offices also have basic information and documents to explain the process necessary to resolve a legal issue in the court system. However, these attorneys or clerks do not represent you and cannot give you legal advice. They're just to help you understand the legal requirement for working your way through the court system and explain your options. Many courts have helpful information online. It should be relatively easy to find your court's website using a search engine like Google by typing in the name and county of the word court. You might be able to find necessary forms, court rules, discuss further, and other information about how to file a lawsuit. Most legal researchers will spend at least some time researching online, and many will spend most of their time. This approach is useful at every stage when you're trying to get information about a topic, zeroing in on specific legal resources, or figuring out what to do with the information you've uncovered. We'll discuss online research and looking for legal resources. Primary sources and secondary sources. Most people, lawyers included, don't jump right into reading the actual law. It's too much of it. It's hard to find and it isn't always easy to understand. Instead, they start by reading an article, summary, or a book explains how a particular area of law works, like family law or personal injury. These sources explain common issues and tell the reader which laws apply. It isn't until the reader understands the pertinent area of law that the researcher reads the actual law. So when researching, you can expect these two types of legal resources, primary and secondary. Primary are the law itself. For example, the statutes, cases, and regulations that list the elements for criminal battery or tell the federal government who is entitled to Social Security benefits. A secondary quote is a resource that explains how a particular area of law works, like family law or personal injury, but it isn't the law itself. For example, an article or a summary about preparing a contract or choosing the best structure for your business would be secondary sources. Primary sources. The law found in primary source can take many different forms. They include cases, statutes, administrative regulations, local ordinances, and state and federal constitutions, and more. Ooh. Get a little light on. Why use primary sources? Using primary sources is critical because courts must follow the law itself, not a secondary source used by attorneys or others to understand how the law works. That is why even primary sources are more challenging to read than secondary sources. It isn't wise to rely solely on a secondary source. Laws can quickly change, and you won't always see these changes reflected in secondary sources. Looking at primary sources will give you the most up-to-date information. Another reason to rely on primary sources is that you find cases closer to your situation as a result. You'll gain more insight into the possible outcome of your lawsuit. For example, you assume your dog escaped from its dog run and bit a neighbor stealing sports equipment from your backyard. You want to know whether you're liable for the trespassing neighbor's injuries. You might find a secondary source explains that your liability when your dog bites someone or your responsibility to a trespass injury on your property. But you might need to go to a primary sources to find a case involving a dog biting on trespasser. Once filed, you'll have a better idea of how a court might apply the law to the facts of the case. Where to find primary sources. The most popular way to access relevant primary material is to use the law library or go online. But beware that laws changes. Legislatures pass new laws, court overrules previous decisions by lower courts, and administrative regulations are amended or repealed. So once you find a primary source, you must ensure that it's still good law. We'll explain how to check a legal source's validity when to use primary sources. As we've explained, courts only follow primary sources, not secondary sources, unless there isn't a law on the issue, which is rare. So it is important to use primary sources when putting together a document or argument that carries legal weight. Therefore, while using secondary sources to understand general concepts is a great strategy. It is essential to read the law it refers to. The citation will be included in the secondary sources in chapters 5 through 7. We'll explain more about reading legal documents. Secondary sources. By now, you get the idea of primary sources are the text laws themselves, and the secondary source is anything that interprets, explains, or discusses the law. Legal journals, online articles, law blogs, even this book would all be considered secondary sources. The depth of treatment you get from giving any secondary source can vary a great deal. Some secondary sources are very detailed, very law intensive, and very helpful. Others might provide only a broad general overview of a topic. Finding a proper secondary source will depend in large on the part where you are in research. In the beginning, you might need only enough information to understand a particular area of law, but as your research progresses, you might want to find secondary sources to provide more specific treatment of your legal issue. You'll need specific source specifics to know what evidence you'll need to prove or defend your particular case. When someone uses secondary sources are a logical place to start when you do not know anything about your research topic. Secondary sources will also explain the basic concepts you'll encounter in primary sources, making it easy to read them. It will also cite primary sources, thus helping to deepen and expand your research. Secondary sources are also useful when you want to learn how things are generally done or how they are done in other states. Many national secondary sources give a broad overview of the law, which can vary from place to place. This can be helpful when you're trying to learn the basics of law, or when you need to compare how different jurisdictions handle the same issues. For instance, while conducting legal research for an academic paper, keep in mind, however, that the law varies between states. If your legal issue involves a state law, you'll be better off using a state-specific secondary source. Where to find secondary sources? Secondary sources can be found in a lot of different locations, from websites to newspapers to books to legal texts available only in law libraries. For the most part, you should be able to find more general second sources online. However, you want more detailed information, then you want to head to the library for the fee-based online research services like those described later. Popular secondary sources. The usability and helpfulness of secondary sources can vary widely. The books and articles published by NOLO are excellent sources of plain English explanations of legal topics. Like this book, they use everyday language to discuss complicated legal issues. We recommend visiting a website when you have legal questions to see if an article or a book is discussed. Often these resources will be good as a jumping off point to the text of primary sources themselves, giving you a foundation to better understand the primary text you will have. The opinion of searching using keywords or following the logical topical characters or subcategories on the homepage. For example, if you want to find out about an immigration related issue, you can either type immigration in the box or immigration under Get Informed. Another well known secondary source that gives you a broad overview of the law is an encyclopedia called the American Jurisprudence, commonly referred as the AmJur. AmJur is an organization by legal topics and covers each issue broadly, discussing general legal principles and sometimes state-specific applications. We'll discuss more about AmJur and how to use it in Chapter 4. Another secondary source is the American Law Report. It's called ALR. It contains a series of articles organized much like AmJur, but we'll cover using ALR. Many states have their own secondary sources that provide detailed information about state law. For example, in California, well-known publisher B.E. Wilkins had a series of specific volumes such as Summary of California Law and California Procedures, which practicing lawyers refer to frequently. These books and others like them provide great detail like AMSR or ALR with lots of references to primary resources. Finally, the website of local and state federal government agency are great sources. For example, if you have questions about federal tax law, the IRS website has many summary documents to explain legal principles laid out in otherwise cumbersome federal tax code. Looking for legal resources online. Conducting legal research online can be much more difficult than doing the same research in a legal library. Not having to wander around physically through the books or speculate as to which source will be most useful. You can save a lot of time, although you can shortcut this step by asking a librarian to show you where the resources pertaining to your issue. Narrow focus online searches get you reliable research, comprehensive results fast. We'll discuss using online research for particular topics. For now, we're just going to familiarize you with some of the major online resources so you'll know where to look once you get ready to get started. Court websites. As already explained, court websites are great for finding information on a variety of legal topics. Sometimes they provide access to primary sources like the court opinions and rules too. For example, if you go to the United States Supreme Court, you can look up a variety of options written by the court, as well as briefs submitted by parties. Briefs are legal documents explaining positions that each side submits to the judge before a hearing. Many other courts have similar accessibility, and at the uscourts.gov, you'll find links to all the federal courts, Court Finder. Caution. Not every opinion you find is good law. Remember, lower courts decisions can be ruled by higher ones, and the decisions of any court can be undone by a new law created by legislation, as long as it does not conflict with the state or federal constitution. In Chapter 8, we'll explain how to determine whether source law is still good law. For now, remember that just because the source isn't online doesn't mean it doesn't hold legal weight. Public access to court electronic records, my favorite. PACER is another excellent resource for court documents. It allows users to obtain information from a variety of federal cases. PACER compiles the legal documents filed in federal lawsuits in various courts across the country. For a small fee, users can download and read these documents. If you're curious about a particular lawsuit or want to know if a party you're going to sue has been sued in federal courts before, PACER is a helpful resource. Local, state, and court websites also provide useful information. Many have online filing services that allow members of the public to access legal documents like briefs and judicial opinions. Some states even compile resources in one location on the website for the entire state court system. To see example, New York State Unified Court System under eCourts, clicking decisions to access rulings and opinions from the state trials and appellate courts. Legislative websites. Many state legislators have online information about bills under consideration or recently passed. You can go to these websites to find an entire set of your law statutes too. Google the name and state legislature to find your site. At the federal level, the database many legal research finds helpful is the GPO, Federal Digital System, a service of U.S. Government Printing Office, which compiles information from all three branches of government, including the congressional legislation, the U.S. Code, and the Code of Federal Regulations. Administrative agencies. Many states and federal administrative agencies also have websites that allow you to access legal information. For example, Connecticut Department of Labor. You can access the Connecticut Department of Labor as well as explanatory information. Click laws and legislations at the bottom. If you know the area of law you're researching, we'll discuss how to figure that out in the next chapter. You might be able to go directly to the website's relevant administrative agency to get more information. If you're looking for federal regulations, regardless of the subject matter, you can type in the www.gpo.gov/FDSYS. Look for Code of Federal Regulations under the browser. Using search engines. To many Today, many researchers turn to search engines like Google to find relevant information on almost any topic, and topics legal topics are no exceptions. Search engines are usually based on the word of the indexed online sites, so they work much like pulling book indexes off a shelf and reading through them, only a much bigger scale than a thorough, a though and though a thorough, and though a complex process. The good part of automatic indexes is they are thorough, but of course they often produce more results than you need. Sometimes those results aren't relevant or reliable. And although most search engines try to rank their research according to how relevant they are to be, this ranking can be unpredictable. For example, one automatic search engine might put exactly what you're looking for at the top of a list of 200, while another might put it far down in the list or even at the bottom. It can be challenging when the list of thousands of documents long. Legal search engines. Sidebar. To even further narrow your search, you can choose to work in a search engine that focuses just on legal websites. You'll want to make sure they have the same flexibility to do Boolean searches. I'll talk about that. As more general search engines, and you might want to go back and forth between the various engines, comparing the contrast and the results. Your local library might have free access to, to the sites used by lawyers such as LexisNexis or Westlaw. A couple free sites to try is scholar.google and case law and law.com/search. Boolean searching. Boolean searching is very important to minimize what you're looking for. To make the most of a tool as powerful as online searching, you want to ensure that you get to all the relevant results when searching, without the irrelevant ones. Often typing a few keywords in the search box will quickly pull up resources that are useful to you. But in other cases, you might be inundated with more than you can handle, and some of it won't be relevant. To avoid this problem, we suggest you learn how to write targeted searches that will narrow your results. The best way to do this is to do this in a search engine that uses Boolean logic, as many do. The point of Boolean logic is that it can read specific words and symbols called operators to help us narrow down our searches. Before we can explain the various Boolean searches, we want to mention that with some of the search engines, you can get a great benefit from Boolean logic without having to master the use of various terms. On Google, for example, you'll find advanced search options. See Boolean searching cheat sheet below for the current Google search pages, and you'll see if you are using a professional legal search site such as Westlaw, you might see more choices yet on that cheat sheet. And here are some common Boolean operators and their functions. And if you use the word "and" in your search, it will be an extended like other words. That is, the search engine will not go looking for documents that use the word "and." Several common terms like the, or, and so forth also don't get indexed. Instead, "and" acts as the operator. The search engine will only look for documents containing the word that appear either on the side of the and. For example, the query box and container produces every document that both has the word box and the word container. That is, it doesn't produce any document that doesn't have both. Some search engines use the plus symbol instead of the word "and" for the same purpose, as shown on Boolean searches cheat sheet. Or instead of "and" means the engine will look for search documents containing either word, box, or container. And not, to exclude words you do not want from use the operator "and not." For example, if you're searching for a legal issue in criminal law and want to exclude results that deal with civil law, you can use the "and not" operator to eliminate the word plaintiff. which describes a party to a civil lawsuit, not a criminal lawsuit. Just keep in mind that when using this operator, it's possible that you exclude some relevant searches. Near number indicates the word should appear in a spatial proximity to each other, such as the same sentence or paragraph. For example, near 3 or in 3 means the words on each side of near must not be separated by more than 3 words. I got that. Yeah. Examples of Boolean searches. Google. Parentheses is the main one. Parentheses, exclamation marks, quotations, putting quotes around the word. A star sometimes serves as a missing word, question mark. And we found every Boolean search will not have the same set of operators. However, the more available to you, the more you narrow your search because you can combine these operators into one search. For example, you're looking for information about the circumstances that triggers driver's license suspension. You will want documents that both contain license and suspend, but each of these documents will also have either the word driver or the word operator. Since you don't know which of these two words will be used in the material you're searching for, a query will accomplish this will look like this: license and suspension and driver parentheses driver or operator. Period. Boolean searches take some practice, and even once you're good at it, you might find that as you do your research, new phrases come up that need to be included or excluded from your query. We encourage you to remain flexible and to keep modifying your queries as you go. Using Google. Though many search engines are available, the most popular is Google. Even though you're very likely familiar with Google, here are some basics to remember. News searches. You can search for news by going to Google, news.google, and entering your query into the search box. You'll find options to refine your search. News alerts. You want to stay abreast of specific subjects, Google alerts. You'll receive daily, as it happens, emails based on your topic or query choice. Type Google alerts. Google Scholar. If you'd like to limit your Google search to Scholar papers, try Google Scholar. Go to scholargoogle.com and in your search, you'll get results that are limited in material, peer-reviewed journals, articles. These are books, abstracts, technical papers, reports, areas of online. If you're doing legal research, you can limit your search to decisions that have been issued by the appellate court throughout the country at both state and federal levels. From Google Scholar, start case law, radio button. Just below, you'll be option limited to certain jurisdictions and courts using the select courts option. Advanced searches. Performing searches with Google Scholar, you'll get better results than using the advanced search. On the left top of the screen, you select 3 parallel horizontal bars, the hamburger menu icon. Choose advanced search, and you'll be given the option to search for particular words, phrases. You can also search by author, publishing date. Quick definitions. Type define, parentheses, keyword to get the definition of a word or phrase fast. For instance, if you type define equal oral contract in the search box, you'll learn that an quote agreement that is not in writing. NOLO's online dictionary also has plain English definitions of legal terms. That is so much greatness. Searching books. If you want to search through the complete text of 1 million books to research a legal site, you can do that using Google Books. Just enter the term into the query, and if you see the books containing the term or phrase, you can access a free preview of many books in Google's databases. And for many titles, some of the entire text is even available free. More tips. Tricks and tech. Best Google search secrets, legal research websites. In addition to using search engines and general government sites to get legal information, you can find a lot of this information on websites specifically designed for legal research. We'll cover some common ones here. Note that the skills you learn by using the search engines will help you here. Many of these sites have search functions that use the same way or similar logic. LexisNexis or Westlaw. In the world of online research, two players dominate. These are LexisNexis, the Lexis.com, and Westlaw. These sites provide access to most any legal research you can imagine. Both have user-friendly platforms which feature a single natural language search that brings out results from all across all databases. While other online research services exist, none have the power of LexisNexis or Westlaw. Of course, this power comes at a price, a very steep one. While LexisNexis and Westlaw are cost effective for large firms with many lawyers using them, they are rarely realistic for the average researcher. Luckily, you might be able to gain access to Westlaw and LexisNexis in a law library. We suggest you call around to near law libraries to find out whether they offer free public access. If not, becoming a regular subscriber is probably not a realistic option for you, but you'll consider these alternative methods. Tip: you have access to LexisLaw or Westlaw and need help figuring out how to use the system. Both websites have online tutorials. We suggest you take them before getting started, particularly if you're being charged for use. Click around at random could get very expensive. Understanding what you're doing will make your research process more efficient, much more efficient. And understanding Boolean searches will also help both databases using similar, more complex search tools. Fortunately, there are other online researches that are much more cheaper or even free. As we explained, NOLA. NOLA's website has many articles and books on legal subjects. Additionally, it provides state-by-state information on various legal topics such as employment, discriminations law for each state, making a will, getting a divorce, filing small claims action in court. NOLA has other resources like a directory of lawyers and a host of legal forums. Justa. Justa is a very comprehensive free site that provides several different legal resources. Probably the most useful is its direct access for searchable federal and state primary and secondary sources as the U.S. Code and Supreme Court opinions since 1790, as well as the federal appellate courses since 1950, and lots of its relevant state material too. Justia also has a helpful feature if you're looking to learn what currently happened with a specific topic. That's because it includes a search feature, www.blawgsearch.justia.com, that allows you to look at legal blogs. Because many lawyers, professionals, and other legal professionals use blog to keep clients and others updated about what's happening in law, they can be excellent resources. FindLaw is another online resource that will help find primary law at no cost. Visit caselaw.findlaw.com to get access to many primary sources. FindLaw covers many primary territories similar to Justia, but don't have as many as secondary sources or helpful links. Versus Law is billed as a low-cost alternative to its larger, more expensive competitor, and its pricing system puts it a financial reap for many general consumers. Versus Law, however, the flip side is that does not have the same reach capacities as the larger providers. Versus Law search's capabilities does not allow the user to access a lot of different resources at one time. However, it limits to primary law resources. Another significant limitation is that while the system can list all case laws that cite a particular case you're researching, it does not distinguish how these subsequent cases deal with the original. It isn't possible to tell from a quick glance whether a subsequent case are overruled or the current one, something that is very easy to do with Westlaw or LexisNexis. Finally, versus law does not give citations to the official reporter. You might need those citations if you plan to cite cases in the official court document. When you search statutes, except for the U.S. Code on versus law, you'll be linked to publicly available websites for each state. Why it's convenient for all this in one place, particularly if you're researching on an issue in more than one state. You can probably find these various statutes other ways at no cost. Fastcase. Another low-cost online option for primary law materials, Fastcase. Fastcase, which features federal and state cases, statutes, court rulings, regulations, and more. Fastcase offers a variety of methods for sorting out results and features that indicate the most cited cases among your search results. A free trial and subscription option are available. Cheat sheet for legal websites. Primary sources: Federal Judiciary, uscourts.com. Pacer, public access to court electronic records. GPO, to search federal statutes and code of federal regulations. Justia, to find state and federal law cases, statutes, regulations, and other materials. FindLaw, caselaw.findlaw.com, to find state law cases and statutes. Versus Law, a low-cost system for searching federal and state cases and statutes, including subsequent history. Bam! Until we get back to next time, that was chapter 2. Legal research.